So hey guys, my name is Siddhant and welcome back to a new video. Today we are going to discuss about the two most important customer categories that are present in India, right? So whenever I say two important customer categories, that means they're classified as the one which belong to the Bharat and the others that belong to the India, right? So by Bharat, I mean that the customers that belong to the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 or rural areas, right? And by India, I mean the customers who belong to the major metropolitan cities of India, right? So this is a very important topic that you need to understand. This is a very important part of the research that you need to understand before going into the phase of product development and launching your startup. Everything right from the ideation to branding to the product development to testing the MVP to successfully raising funds, each and every step involves the differentiation that you need to know between भारत and India, right? तो आज की वीडियो में हम इसी टॉपिक के ऊपर बात करने वाले that what do I mean exactly by the Indian customers and by the customers of Bharat. And if you're new to this channel and if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, then do subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to receive the latest notifications of my videos on time. So hey guys, so let's start with the video. So each and every investor or each and every entrepreneur in India's startup ecosystem today is talking about the next billion customers that India is going to generate. And these billion customers are those who are not yet on the internet, right? हम सबको पता है कि इंडिया में there is a total population of over 1.4 billion people, but approximately 400 to 500 million people are on the net. So the remaining 1 billion people are yet to come into the mainstream industry of e-commerce and on internet, right? So today we are going to discuss about what are those next 1 billion customers, because you need to understand that if you want to create a large scale business or a startup, then you need to focus on the masses or you need to focus on the classes, and there's a very important differentiation that you need to understand. तो आज की वीडियो में we are going to discuss each and everything that difference in the demographics, the dynamics of both of these groups, what are the things that you need to take into consideration, what are the important parameters that differentiate these two customer bases in India, and also we are going to look at very interesting examples, about 4 to 5 interesting examples of various industries and various companies that cater to both of these customer segments, right? So this is going to be a very interesting video. So now let's start by understanding a little bit of Indian demographics, right? So if you see, then the per capita income in India is approximately $2,000, that rounds up to about 1.5 lakh rupees per year, and that is not a very good figure, right? So we can understand the affordability of the Indian customers. So if we see the further classification, then we can see that there are about 600 million people that belong to the middle class income groups. There are about 70 to 80 million people who belong to the higher income class groups, but there are about 700 to 800 million people who belong to the lower middle class or lower class or to the poor income households group, right? So now you need to understand that there is a very high amount of economical inequality in India, right? So if you see, then 10% of the total country's population has about 57% of the wealth. Just the top 1% holds about 22% of the wealth of the whole country, right? And in fact, after the pandemic, the middle class group in India has shrunk and they have been moved to the poor class, right? So you need to understand that whenever you are coming up with a new product now, especially after the COVID pandemic, the dynamics of these two classes in India has changed. So now let's have a look at all the important parameters that you need to take into consideration while creating a product, right? So now the first point is scale versus quality. Now this is something that we call classes versus masses. Now if you're producing some goods in mass, like suppose for example Maruti Suzuki. Now Maruti Suzuki produces lakhs and lakhs of cars each year. Now there is scale, but the quality is lower, but they want to cater to the masses, right? However, if you see Rolls-Royce produces just a handful of cars each and every month in their showroom because they cater to the classes. Therefore, the scale is lower, but the quality is much higher, right? So that is the first point of differentiation, that is scale versus quality, quantity versus quality. Now, the second point is expensiveness versus affordability. Now, whenever you are creating products for the classes, they can be expensive as long as you are able to provide good quality products and you're solving their problem. But whenever you are catering to the masses, even if the product is solving their problem and if it is not affordable, if it is expensive, expensive, then it is actually not solving their problem because they would not be able to afford one. So expensiveness versus affordability. So price game is a very important game. Now the price game is very important that you need to understand while pricing your products. I have made a detailed video on how to price your product, so you can go back and you can watch that video. There's a very thin line between pricing your products, right? So you need to keep it affordable while you also need to take care that you have enough profit margins to scale your business. Now the third point is facility or uniqueness versus utility. Now whenever you are catering to the classes or the customers of so-called India, then you need to understand the psychology of the customer, right? So these consumers buy the products if they are impressed by the uniqueness, or they find something amazing, or they want some extra facility. But when it comes to the masses, that is the next billion people or the Bharat customers, then the first thing that they look into is the utility of the product, right? So all the middle class people, all the lower middle class people, or the poor people, they can relate that whenever you go for shopping, the first thing that you look into in every product is not its color, it is not its uniqueness, but it is the utility of the product. If it is of high utility and if it is affordable, then you buy the product, right? Now the fourth point is English versus vernacular or regional language. So if your product, if your feature, if your service involves some kind of language interaction or interaction with the customers, then you need to understand that English just works in the major metropolitan cities of India, right? For the so-called Indian customers. But when you're looking to target the Bharat customers or the masses, then you need to get your features or your services in the regional or vernacular languages, right? So there's a great example, right, that we can look into. The first example is of iPhone. Now if you buy a new iPhone and if you are setting the phone up, then you can see a lot of different languages like Spanish, French, Italian, German, Russian, Mandarin, English, many languages, right? But on the other hand, if we take an example of JioPhone, that is for the masses of India, the language, the set of languages is totally different. You might find Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, Bengali, Marathi, Sindhi, Punjabi, all of those languages are there in JioPhone. And this is the differentiation of the customer base. So if you are targeting the elite customers, then you need to have English or other major languages that are spoken all over the world. And if you are targeting to the masses of India, then you need to have the regional and vernacular languages in your products or services, right? Now the fifth main point that you need to take into consideration is excitement versus pain point. Now this relates to the previous third point that I told you, that is facility or uniqueness versus the utility. Now this is excitement versus pain point. Now people belong to the major metropolitan cities might buy something out of excitement. They might buy a feature, they might get a service, or they might buy a product out of excitement. But the people belonging to the masses or to the true Bharat, that is belonging to the tier 3, tier 4 or the rural areas of India, they buy product based on their pain point. So if you have something that solves their pains, then they are definitely going to be your customers. If you are creating something exciting and if it is not solving their pain points, then it is not a product for them. And this actually decides the product adoption, and that is where actually creating an MVP is very important before you launch your product. So you need to create your MVP and you need to test it in your target customer market, and you need to see that how fast or how quickly is the product getting adopted by the customers, and that is how you will understand the product placement and the right target customer base. So now before moving on to the examples, there are very interesting examples that are lined up after this. So before moving on to the examples, let me tell you the importance of making this video is that you need to define your target audience. I have made a lot of videos on defining target audience, target markets. You can go back and you can check those videos as well. You will find the links in the description box below. But the main motive of creating this video is to make young entrepreneurs understand that you need to define your niche and you need to define your target audience. People say that my target audience is India, but India cannot be a target audience because India has so much of diversity and variety, and if you move across all the 29 states and the union territories, then the people are different, the culture is different, each and everything is different, and therefore India is not a country, but it is like a whole continent, and the small states are different countries, right? So you need to take that into consideration, and also you need to take into consideration that along with geographical differences, you also have demographical and economical differences. So now the first example is Cred versus Oyo. I know that these companies don't belong to the same industry. However, I think it is a great example if you want to compare the customers of the Bharat and also India. Now, Cred caters to those top 1% people of India who have credit cards, right, who use credit cards. However, the 1% has that paying capacity, and therefore Cred has a good revenue model, it has a good future, and Cred also has a good valuation. However, if you look at Oyo is solving extremely opposite problem statement as compared to Cred, right? Oyo started with the tagline of providing budget hotels, good budget hotels at affordable price, right? Now, good hotels in budget price, that is the tagline of Oyo, and that is something that is their USP, right? Now, if you see that Oyo has millions and millions of customers, 95% of the business of Oyo, it comes from the budget hotels, right? That they provide at about 700, 800, 900 rupees per night. And this is a great example that you can create a big enough business if you target any one of those classes properly, right? So if you're targeting India, you can create a big enough business like Cred because they have the paying capacity. But if you can solve the pain point, if you can crack that business model and you can solve something for the masses, then you can create a big enough business out of the masses as well, out of those Bharat customers as well, like Oyo did. Now, the second example is supermarket stores like D-Mart or Big Bazaar versus 7-Eleven or Godrej Nature's Basket, and all of those premium supermarkets, right? So if you see that D-Mart and Big Bazaar are for the masses, whereas 7-Eleven or Godrej Nature Basket, these are for the premium or the elite class, right? Now, if you see, then all of these supermarket chains are huge and they are big businesses, but they have been built on very different customer bases, right? And that is because there are multiple ways of earning 1 lakh rupees, right? You can provide 100 customers a product of 1000 rupees, or you can provide 1000 customers the product of 100 rupees. And that is the same thing when it comes to these supermarkets, right? Like D-Mart and Big Bazaar, they have lower cart value but they have more customers, and 7-Eleven, Godrej Nature's Basket, they have a higher cart value but lower customers. Now, the third and the last example, but a very interesting example, and that is of OTT platforms, Netflix versus MX Player, suppose, right? So Netflix, it provides premium content to the elite people belonging to the major metropolitan cities because it has a good amount of subscription fees, and also it provides the content in English language, right? It doesn't provide the content in the regional or vernacular languages. And on the other hand, there's MX Player, which is actually free, and it provides content in Hindi and regional languages, right? The quality of the content might be lower, but it is affordable, it is free, and it is in vernacular or regional languages that is understandable to the masses or to the people of Bharat of India, right? So now, suppose if you want to design an OTT platform, so there are a few things that you need to take into consideration, right? So if you're looking to create an MX Player, then you need to take into consideration few parameters, right? So the first is app size and user interface. Now, you don't need to have an amazing user interface like Netflix, right, or Disney Hotstar. You can have a simple and basic user interface like MX Player, and therefore it will drastically reduce the app size, right? Because people have affordable phones, because people belonging to Bharat don't have high-end mobile phones, and therefore there is a constraint when it comes to the memory. So if you can build a very simple and basic user interface, then it will reduce the app size. Now, the second point that you can take into consideration is data consumption. Now, higher the picture quality, more is the data consumption. If you can afford Netflix, then you can afford to get a good enough data pack that can support 4K and full HD quality. But if you cannot afford a good enough data pack, then even if you need to compromise on the picture quality, if you can watch it in 480p or 360p, it is good enough, right? And therefore, for the people belonging to lower income groups or people from rural areas, data consumption is their second key point. Now, third is low networks. Now, your app should be such that it should work in lower networks as well. It should have a less loading time. It should be very light, right? So heavy apps like Netflix and Disney Hotstar might not load in poor network areas, whereas apps like MX Player, they can easily load because they don't have that much of functionality and they are very light in functioning, and therefore they can function in lower networks as well. So guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you understood the difference between the next billion customers that are going to come onto the internet and are going to be on the mainstream internet, right? And they are a good target market if you're looking to solve a very big problem that is big enough to cater to the masses. And therefore this video is very important because you need to understand the core parameters that are different for both of these categories, right? So I hope you liked the video, I hope you liked the examples, and if you want to learn more about startups, then do go back to my channel and check out more videos on my channel as well. And if you're new to this video, then do like the video, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to receive the latest notifications of my videos on time. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, goodbye. Take care. Thank you.